What is going on, Raider Nation? Welcome back to the channel, man. Look, if you guys haven't yet, subscribe to the channel and hit it with the like button. We are constantly bringing you guys high quality Raiders content. So stay on the lookout for our live shows and new updated videos dropping weekly. So without further ado, today, you guys, we're going to talk about the offensive side of the football heading into training camp, some surprise cut candidates, and maybe some surprise starting lineups that I see moving forward as we draw closer to the season. We're not going to spend too much time focusing on Derek Carr, Devontae Hunter, and Darren Waller. Those are established players who are going to get majority of the targets when it comes to the offensive side of the football. We're going to focus our attention on that wide receiver 2 spot. And look, this is really going to be a wide receiver 4 position moving forward into this season. But it's quite interesting when you look at the lineup, right? You got a guy like Keelan Cole and Demarcus Robinson, a guy in Mac Hollins, Tyron Johnson, and a sneaky under-the-radar gadget type of player in Justin Hall that we'll get into him in a little bit. So starting at the top of the roster, man, you got a guy like Keelan Cole. Played for the Jacksonville Jaguars, played for the New York Jets. This is a guy who's a good route runner, really runs well at the top of his routes, really solid hands, a big body guy, able to go up and get the football. He's just had a lack of talent at the QB position and really hasn't found a home. Look, he's been asked to play for the Jacksonville Jaguars and the New York Jets, and he's been asked to be the guy. Coming into this situation in this offense, you got Davante Adams, you got a Hunter Renfrow, you got a Darren Waller. You don't necessarily have to be the guy in this offense, and I think that bodes well. You match Keelan Cole up against CB4s, CB3s. This guy's going to have a really, really good season if he can buy into the playbook and get up to date, get up to speed with everybody, and develop a chemistry with Derek Carr. I'm expecting Keelan Cole to have a sneaky good season. This is a guy who's shown he's had 600-yard seasons, right? He's shown that 6 to 8 touchdown range. This is a red zone threat that everybody in Raider Nation's been clamoring for. Just an overall really good sneaky signing that I think is going to bode well for the Silver and Black. And then you move down the roster, right? You go down to a Demarcus Robinson. This is a guy who's familiar with this type of situation, playing behind a Tyreek Hill, a McCole Hardman, a Travis Kelce. He's played this role before. Now, I'm not saying he's this superstar type of wide receiver or anything. No, but he's a good, solid receiver who's been familiar with this type of situation that he finds himself in with the Silver and Black, right? He's not going to be asked to be the guy. He's going to be asked to play that wide receiver 4 spot, and he's going to be in that rotation at that position. So this is a guy who I expect to find some success with the Raiders. And a guy like Tyron Johnson, I mean, this guy has something that you just can't coach, and that's 4.3 speed. And it's something that really this offense is missing. They're missing a guy who can take the top off of a defense. You've got a phenomenal route runner, the overall best wide receiver in the entire National Football League, and Davante Adams. You have one of the best slot wide receivers. Honestly, you can argue you have two of the better route runners in the entire game with Hunter Renfrow and Devontae. And then you obviously have a superstar tight end in Darren Waller. He needs no introduction. We all know what Darren Waller's capable of. And you put a guy like Tyron Johnson with the ability to really stretch the field and open things up for those guys underneath. I just think he brings an aspect to this roster that the Raiders are needing, which is why I think Tyron Johnson's going to be one of those guys that I see make the roster. And it's going to lead me to tell you that I don't necessarily think, unless the Raiders go out there and keep 6 to 7 wide receivers, which I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if that happens. 6, I guarantee you they're going to make. But I'm having a hard time seeing Mac Hollins make the roster. And let me talk about it. Especially if Justin Hall can come in and have a really big preseason. If this guy can show anything dynamic that he can bring, whether it be trick plays, end arounds, taking slants to the house, we're really going to have to watch him in preseason. But getting back to Mac Hollins on why I don't necessarily see him making the roster, Raider Nation, you might criticize me, which is okay, man. Leave a comment down in the comment section below. I'll love to address your comments. But look, Mac Hollins just doesn't separate himself from the pack for me. He doesn't bring enough to the table when it comes to things that these other guys can do, right? Demarcus Robinson has been in this situation before. Keelan Cole, just overall, his entire skill set, his route running, his hands, the success that he's had in the National Football League. I just see Keelan Cole having a lot more success than a guy like Mac Hollins. Mac Hollins is a good football player, don't get me wrong. He's a good football player, but he just doesn't separate. He doesn't do anything uniquely different from the other guys. If you want to maybe bring up a red zone threat, Keelan Cole is that. Foster Moreau is that. Darren Waller is that. Devontae Adams is that. So are you going to allocate a roster spot And hear me out, Raider Nation. These roster spots are going to be really, really huge this season, especially with the amount of depth that you've created on this roster in the offseason. Shout out to Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler and Champ Kelly for building a remarkable team this offseason, arguably the best offseason that we've seen in the last 20 years. Look, one of those spots is going to be crucial. Are you going to potentially allocate it to an extra offensive line spot, somewhere where you actually need you have a real need to create a sense of depth? Maybe a cornerback. Maybe you're going to carry 7 defensive backs, which is something that Patrick Graham did last season with the New York Giants, carrying that extra defensive back because he asked a lot of those guys. These roster spots are going to be few and far in between, and you're really going to have to show up to camp and earn your spot if you're going to be a member of the Silver and Black this offseason. So a guy like Mack Hollins is going to have a tough time, in my opinion. I know he's been really hyped up this offseason. I know that there's been a lot of videos put out of him working with Derek Carr. And look, if he goes out there and earns it, then I'm all for it. I want him to find success. He just doesn't separate himself in that skill set. He doesn't have the 4.3 speed. If you're talking about red zone threat, we've got red zone threats, especially in Keelan Cole. Demarcus Robinson can also do that. Tyron Johnson is not a small guy either. So if Justin Hall can really show up to training camp and show that he can offer this team something that Mack Hollins can't, I do expect him to make the roster. Just a surprise candidate, just something to keep your eyes on. It's a really early assessment, so we'll see what kind of preseason Mack Hollins has, but just something to keep your guys' eyes on, man. So transitioning over to the offensive line of the football, starting with the left side, it's already locked down. Left tackle Colton Miller. Right tackle is obviously going to be Alex Leatherwood, and we could talk about the depth pieces behind that, but I just want to really talk about some things to watch for in camp. Look, you've brought in a lot of guys, right? And if I'm Josh McDaniels and I'm Coach Priscillo, I want to give this offensive line the best opportunity of success and keeping Derek Carr upright. So looking into week 1, how are we going to construct this offensive line? If I'm Coach Priscillo, I'm Josh McDaniels, we're establishing a new system. We're trying to get a lot of guys up to speed, fast route, a lot of chemistry. What are we going to do? And I think that the answer is it's not that difficult. Put the players that have the most experience on the field. They might not necessarily be the most talented, but they've got the most experience. And when I say that, I'm talking about mainly the interior guard positions. Starting with the left guard position, a lot of people forget that Jermaine Illuminor has played guard and tackle for Josh McDaniels in times past, and he found some success. He understands the power gap scheme. He understands Coach Priscillo. He has experience with Coach Priscillo. He understands what he has in Jermaine Illuminor. And look, let's face it, Jermaine Illuminor stepped up big for us last season. Arguably, in one of the crucial moments where we really needed an offensive lineman to step up, Jermaine Illuminor really played well football. I'm not saying he played elite, but he played good, serviceable football to make it not a disaster, right? It wasn't like having a Brandon Parker out there on an island. So Jermaine Illuminor is a guy to really watch out for that left guard spot. A guy like Alex Bars, this guy's played all over. He's played every position, okay? This is a guy who's completely versatile. He's not the greatest guard. You probably don't necessarily want him in the game. But this is a guy to look for. He played a lot of football, very versatile, a guy like Coach Priscillo is going to like. Moving to the center position, look, Andre James got better as the season went on. Say what you want about Andre James. Look, at first it was ugly, Raider Nation. But those last 5 games, Andre James really stepped up, and he ended up finishing in the top 10 at his position, okay? And that's something that you have to look for. Coaching staff is looking at that. The coaching staff is going to say, look, this guy improved. He didn't get worse. He improved as the season went on, which is what you're looking for in a first-year starter like Andre James. This is an undrafted guy. You guys have to give these guys time to develop. That was his first season playing against superstars at the elite level. It's not easy to do. So we have to give these guys an opportunity to develop. His year 1 isn't going to be like his year 2. Andre James, I think, he's going to surprise a lot of Raider Nation. I think he's going to become one of those guys that Raider Nation's actually pulling for, despite the amount of hate that he's getting this offseason. You go over to the right guard position. You put in a guy like Denzel Good. The guy's played arguably his best football with the Silver and Black. This is a guy who's really, you guys, let's sum up this entire offseason in one word, can we? It's versatility. With all the signings that they've had, right? You can go all the way to the defensive side of the football with the Deron Harmons. You can go to the Cravon LeBlancs, the Darius Phillips, the Rock Ya-Sins, the Anthony Averets, the Bilal Nichols signings, the Jayon Browns, the Kyle Fackrell, Kyle Pico. You can go through all of these guys, right? Mac Hollins, Keelan Cole. These guys are all versatile players, man, that can bring a lot to the Raiders organization and can play a lot of multiple roles. And that's exactly what Denzel Good's game is. He's the most versatile offensive lineman that the Raiders have in their entire starting lineup. This guy's played good football. Now he has to stay healthy. He's consistently showed that he's struggled with injuries. But if Denzel Good can stay healthy, man, you're looking at a penciled-in starter. And that's what I think it should be. I think you should give the offensive lineman the best possibility to succeed, and that is starting your veteran linemen. Now moving into guys like John Simpson and Dylan Parham and Thayer Mumford and Bam and Brandon Parker. Let all those guys develop. I don't know what the rush is of developing these guys, and I know I'm going to take a lot of heat for that as well. But look, you're not in the position anymore. You have an opportunity to really do things the right way. Let these guys develop. Let these draft pieces actually sit behind some veterans and finally develop. When's the last time the Raiders let these guys sit back and develop? We've always been forced to start young players. We've always been forced to put them in probably before they're even ready. Let's be honest. And then when they struggle, we like to be the first ones to throw the stones at them. And look, we got to stop with that. You have an opportunity to really develop Dylan Parham and get him used. That way, when you do ask him to start, and look, if he goes in later in the latter half of the season, week 8 and on, and he's earned that starting guard spot, maybe there was injuries, maybe he really stepped up and showed constant improvement and the ability to grasp things at the next level, then by all means go ahead and give him that spot. But to say going into week 1 with a rookie guard and Dylan Parham who really needs to learn to reset the line of scrimmage and get up into the next level and push defenders back at the next level. Look, you're asking a kid, if you're going to put Dylan Parham in week 1, I think you're going to have a lot of problems. And that's just my opinion. That's not to say that Dylan Parham's not a good prospect, not a good football player, because he is all of those things. And I really like Dylan Parham. I'm really high on Dylan Parham. But let's not rush and start this guy week 1. Like, I don't understand the desires to do that. It's not that often that you guys find success. Let's just keep it a buck. You don't find success that often. So that's really the grand scheme. A guy like Thayer Mumford, you could put him in there as a backup guard. You could put him in there as a backup tackle. Brandon Parker's obviously going to be your swing tackle. Bam Osolini is a guy that's really intriguing. He's the longest tackle in the entire NFL. He's 26 years old. He's only played football for 3 years. He's 6'8", 350 pounds, just a monster of a man. Reminds me a little bit of the Trent Brown situation when San Francisco decided to draft him. A guy that was taken really late, too big, not athletic enough, yada, yada, yada. All the scouts saying that they know all these football players and what they're going to turn out to be. This guy, if he can just put in the work, in a year or two, you could probably have a serviceable backup and maybe a potential starter at the age of 28 with not a lot of experience, and maybe he can make a career. So this is a guy that I could expect to make the practice squad, probably the protected practice squad. Let's just see what kind of preseason he has. I like Bam. I really like Bam Osolini. He's one of those guys that I'm rooting for this offseason to succeed just because of his traits, his measurables, his story. It's all intriguing. So, look, the offensive line, I have trust in Coach Priscilla that he's going to figure it out and put the best 5 out there. I could be way wrong, right? He might want to go with the young lineup. I just don't see that with his history. He likes veterans. They like guys who are versatile. They like guys who have played a lot of football. And to me, Colton Miller, Jermaine Illuminor, Andre James, Denzel Good, and Alex Leatherwood give you the best chance to succeed right off the bat. So, taking a look at the running back room, in 2021, Josh McDaniels carried 6 total runners, 5 running backs, 1 fullback. I don't necessarily see that with him this year. I could see 4 runners, 1 fullback. I got Josh Jacobs, Kenyon Drake. I've got Zeus, a.k.a. Zamir White. I call him Zeus all the time now. And then you got a guy like Brandon Bolden, who's really familiar with Josh McDaniels' scheme. And when I look at these runners, you have Josh Jacobs, right, the power back. Then you got Zeus. These guys are almost like insurance policies for one another. That's how I view it. You've got the power back in Zamir White and Josh Jacobs. If something were to happen to Josh Jacobs, you give Zamir White. And look, all this talk that Zamir White's going to take this huge role and replace Josh Jacobs immediately, it's just not going to happen. He is going to be insurance policy. He is going to carve out a role for himself. He is going to get snaps. But look, the guy who's going to get majority of the second snaps is going to be a guy like Kenyon Drake, especially if he's healthy. Now that he was cleared that he's going to be a full go come week 1, we'll monitor that and see how that goes. If Drake is out, expect Zamir White to really get those reps that Kenyon Drake would typically get. But look, if Kenyon Drake is healthy, Kenyon Drake is going to eat into those second reps, which is going to take away from Zamir White. And a guy like Brandon Bolden is going to be used as a receiving threat. And Brandon Bolden is really insurance for Kenyon Drake. These guys are both receiving options out of the backfield. We all know, look, Kenyon Drake has been extremely successful receiving the football. 1,500 career yards, 8 career touchdowns, 7 career touchdowns, something like that. This guy's just found a lot of success receiving the football, and I think that's a guy like Josh McDaniels is gonna utilize. I could see if Kenyon Drake, again, if he stays healthy, Kenyon Drake is going to be one of those players that Josh McDaniels utilizes much better than I think John Gruden did. And he's going to find ways to really unlock Kenyon Drake's skill set in this offense and could really emerge as a top weapon for the Raiders. I mean, a sneaky weapon with all the allocated coverages going to other guys. Kenyon Drake is one of those guys you cannot underestimate. And if you want to load up the boxes, good luck covering the pass. If you want to spread guys out thin, if this power gap scheme really hits off, good luck covering. We got guys that can hit the outside zones, guys like Kenyon Drake, guys like Zamir White. You got guys who can receive the football, Drake, Brandon Bolden, Josh Jacobs has come quite a ways in receiving game. This running back room is really unique. Amir Abdullah is a guy that I'm going to be watching preseason. This is a guy who's probably going to earn a roster spot on another NFL franchise. I think he's a really good backup. He's going to have a big preseason because he's going to get a lot of reps for the Raiders. He might make the practice squad, but if they don't protect him on the practice squad, this is a guy who's going to get selected by another organization. Mark my words, he will make a roster in 2022. So Amir Abdullah brings a lot. He had a really successful year with the Minnesota Vikings. A lot of the Minnesota Vikings fans didn't want to get rid of him. So keep an eye on him in preseason. I expect him to have a really exciting and fun preseason to watch. Don't necessarily know if he's going to make the roster. Of course, we have Jacob Johnson at the fullback position. He's a lock. Barring any injury, he's a lock to make the roster. So really, Raider Nation, just an exciting offseason, man. Just exciting that we're going to head into training camp this week, and we're going to have a lot to talk about. So some of the things that we discussed today, we're going to get to see how it all works out, right? I believe rookies report tomorrow, which is today if you're watching this video on Monday. Wednesday, I believe the veterans show up. So we're going to have a lot to talk about, man. So if you guys aren't subscribed to the channel, hit this video with the like button. It is the quickest and easiest way to support this channel. And if you guys haven't already, man, check out these 2 recently uploaded videos. I think that you'll really enjoy them. And look, you guys know how we do it, man. Everybody hearing the sound of my voice, may the Lord Jesus Christ bless each and every single one of you. And until next time, Raider Nation, just win, baby.